It wasn't self-inflicted. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't an overdose or anything like that. It was death at the hands of another.
Tell the jury what you mean by the term asphyxia.
Asphyxia means that the person was unable to get enough oxygen.
So there are many ways that can occur.
We've been talking about this case since 2021 when you came aboard, and I started in 2020 with this.
Can you tell us JJ is safe? That's really all anyone wants to know.
The couple was recently seen at the Kauai airport, refusing to answer questions about the missing children.
You're very worried?
Vallow and Daybell fled Idaho and headed to Hawaii one day after authorities performed a welfare check looking for the kids. He married Vallow late last year, a few weeks after his wife of 29 years died, and 4 months after her husband was shot to death by her brother.
So many twists and turns, but really what it points down, what it comes back to is extreme beliefs, whether it's religion, whether it's books and readings and writings and so forth. We always say that anything that's extreme is really dangerous, and it could be deadly, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. When one becomes a zealot, and there's no common sense anymore, there's no talking to a zealot, there's no reasoning with them. They lose all sense of normal behavior and reason.
Yeah, and those are some of the most dangerous times when you have people that are calling people by other names and saying that they're possessed. And if you are around somebody or anyone in public that talks like that, we refer to them as EDPs, right? Emotionally disturbed people.
Yeah,
right?
Because it's not politically correct to call them a psycho. Anyhow.
Oh, thanks for going there, Ed.
We used to. Where did we take EDPs?
Right, exactly. We took them to the psych ward.
To the psych ward.
Yeah. I think this case proves how dysfunctional the coroner system is across the country.
Well, there are many cases. This is just one of them. This is just the latest one. I mean, you can go back to the Michael Jordan's father's death and how that was handled by the coroner there. I mean, there's so many examples of this, but you have an otherwise healthy woman, who is an athlete and dies suspiciously, and no autopsy.
Yeah,
you take the husband's word for what happened here, and then he rushes to bury her. So, if they would have brought the body directly to the medical examiner's office, now, if there was any kind of contusions under the skin, which you'll find out later in the testimony, he found contusions on her skin, basically bruising. Okay. Now, a lot of times that bruising isn't seen at the scene because the blood is pooling under the skin. It's only when the body sits in the medical examiner's office over a period of time, or the funeral home over a period of time, do those bruises then become visible to the naked eye and surface. Okay. So you would have found that. You would have looked for cyanosis, which is bluing of the skin. Okay. And they would have been able to document that, right? They would have drawn vitreous fluids from the eyes and did toxicology on blood in the vitreous fluids to see if she was poisoned or injected with anything. They would have been able to look at the heart and see if there was any cardiac condition, if she was suffering from hypertension.
And a large heart.
Right. If she had any of these signs and symptoms of cardiovascular disease that could have caused her to have a heart attack. But all of that was lost. But thank God she wasn't cremated. Now, because if that was the case, we wouldn't be here in trial right now. They wouldn't have been able to do that second autopsy. They wouldn't have been able to find these findings that the pathologists did in fact find, stating that this was not a natural death. This was a homicide, death at the hands of another, and it was asphyxiation.
But we heard from the deputy coroner that she's on the scene taking her phone and Googling pink frothy foam. What could cause that?
When you starve a person of oxygen, a phenomena called petechial hemorrhaging occurs. It's usually found on your lips, on the inside of your lips, on the whites of your eyes, and also in your lungs, where the tiny little capillaries of your blood vessels burst and bleed, and in your terms of the lips and the eyes, to create these pinpoint blood spots that are easily recognizable as a sign of asphyxiation or oxygen deprivation. Now, that's not the only way that can occur, because if you introduce a chemical such as carbon monoxide or any of the other agents, chemical warfare agents or toxic industrial chemicals that block hemoglobin from gathering oxygen into the blood, it can cause that as well.
Yeah, and many people know about that, but there's many people that might not. But can you talk on this pink foam? Is that unusual?
Well, it is unusual, yes. There's a number of toxins that could cause that. It could be a sign that maybe the capillaries or blood vessels inside of the lungs are bursting and bleeding and mixing with amylase and saliva, and you're getting this foam, this pinkish foam, when the victim in their last dying breaths are trying to breathe, and then it comes up.
Yeah, everything that happened with these two were so questionable and so sketchy. When we as lay people and retired detectives and regular people who are true crime enthusiasts that just watch true crime, you look back at this and be like, hey, wait a minute, how did nobody catch on to this? Why didn't these outside agencies or these agencies from different states communicate with each other? Why were the people in Arizona not in tune to what happened in Idaho? Why did they not see what happened in Hawaii when this guy right here was chasing Chad and Lori around with a microphone, asking them, where the hell are your kids? You're here in Hawaii getting married. Your wife died just a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and you are now married on the beach with a ukulele in your hand.
He said that Tammy died of asphyxia, and the manner of death was homicide. Cause of death, asphyxia. Manner of death, homicide.
So a simple definition for the homicide, medical legal death investigation, is death at the hands of another. Now, that's not a legal term, that's a medical legal term. It's not the same as murder, because there are some homicides that are not criminal, like justifiable homicide, self-defense. So they're just giving a medical term.
They say asphyxia, right? Asphyxiation.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
There's many ways someone could be asphyxiated.
It means that the person was unable to get enough oxygen.
Okay, so there are many ways that can occur. When you starve a person of oxygen, a phenomenon called petechial hemorrhaging occurs. It's usually found on your lips, on the inside of your lips, on the whites of your eyes, and also in your lungs, where the tiny little capillaries of your blood vessels burst and bleed, and in your terms of the lips and the eyes, to create these pinpoint blood spots that are easily recognizable as a sign of asphyxiation or oxygen deprivation. Now, that's not the only way that can occur, because if you introduce a chemical such as carbon monoxide or chemical warfare agents or toxic industrial chemicals, block hemoglobin from gathering oxygen into the blood, it can cause that as well.
This is the screwed up part, is that if this was done the right way the first time, they would have had so much more. And Ed, can you just expand on what I mean by how they'd have so much more?
Again, if she was taken back to the medical examiner's office, as I said, those bruises would show up later. But as a crime scene investigator, because in New York, when you have a death like this, we respond.
There was no
okay, so law enforcement respond, right? I'm not saying crime scene per se, because if it was deemed natural, crime scene wouldn't go, okay? But that would be on our medical legal death investigators. But as a crime scene investigator, I could use an alternate light source to scan the skin of the victim in UV, okay? And under UV, even though with my naked eye, I couldn't see bruises on the skin, if the blood was forming underneath the skin to cause the contusion or show the contusion or the bruising, the UV light would penetrate the skin and get to the blood, and where it interacts with the blood, the UV would cause the blood to turn black and make it visible on the skin in black patches. Okay, so that's one way of non-destructive way of examining the dead body's skin to look for the bruisings that can't be seen now with the naked eye, but surface later back at the autopsy suite. Next, once I got that result, I go get my thermal imaging camera, and then I scan that same area where I got results with the UV light from the alternate light source, and I could find that pooling of blood underneath. In fact, here, let me show you. This is a friend of mine. She's actually one of my crime scene investigators and trainers, all right? So you see that red mark?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, that's on the skin. Now, this is what that red mark looks like under UV.
Whoa.
Okay, And
this
this is what
the UV light source on that
Right.
sink.
and this is what it looks like on the thermal image.
You can see all the broken blood vessels underneath the skin.
Right. And you can see where it bled and where it's not bleeding, right? So there's ways of doing this. It's non-destructive. You know, I'm not cutting tissue. I'm not taking histology, or I'm taking microscope slides of blood or skin and tissue and so forth. But you know, the information is there. If that body would have got back to the medical examiner's office, all of this would have been found at the time of her death, as opposed to after exhuming the body from the grave.